Welcome to the 11th episode of It Wasn't Me, a true crime podcast where we talk about murders that intrigue us. I'm Mercedes.
And I am Cindy. In this week's episode, we'll talk about a group of honor roll students whose robbery plot turns deadly.
Thanks for listening to last week's episode where we discussed the killing spree of the Sunday morning slasher, Coral Watts. Our podcast is not recommended for children. Fair warning, this is extremely horrifying and graphic, and we will use offensive language. So if you have kids, put them away for a while and join us for a murder.
For more information and links to our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, please visit our website at itwasn'tmetruecrime.com. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, and please give us a 5-star rating. While you're there, leave us a comment telling us which murder intrigues you. And if you like our show, please consider supporting us through patreon.com/itwasn'tmepod. We appreciate our Patreon supporters so very much.
Hey Cindy, how's it going this week?
Going pretty well. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Christmas is coming up. Oh, wait, or did it already pass? I don't even know when we'll air this episode. Right?
Right?
Yeah. So where we are now is we're pre-recording for Christmas vacays and things like that. So hey, this will be released on whichever day it's released. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, because I know it'll be before that, or maybe it'll be New Year's Eve. I don't know, but Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's if this comes before or after that time.
Yes.
So, Cindy, today we're going to go back to California. This time we're going to go near in a suburb of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And this area is Fullerton. It's in Orange County, California, and it's considered one of the best places to live in California, relatively crime-free. It's got the perfect mix of urban and suburban. So you've got your downtown, you've got your suburbs, you've got
your housewives.
That's right. A lot of doctors and attorneys and things like that. Most residents own their own homes. And the public schools are amazing. Like they're all A schools. Everybody goes, pretty much, not everybody, but the schools are just all that.
All right.
And I mention that because the guys that we're going to talk about this week are all high school seniors.
Whoa.
Yeah, we're going to talk about high school seniors this week. And it's still 2019, right?
Yes.
All of them are honor roll students except for one, and our story takes place, this murder actually took place on New Year's Eve, 1992. So I thought it was kind of fitting when I typed in New Year's Eve murders, this one popped up.
Yes, so, very much.
Yeah. So all of these guys, all but one of them was on an academic superstardom, like on a path towards Ivy League colleges.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
Ivy League derailed.
Yes. So I'm going to start with 17-year-old Stuart Tay. Tay is a Chinese American. He's an honor roll student at Foothill High School in Santa Ana, California. And he was the son of a prominent doctor. His mom was a homemaker. She was very active in the Asian American community. She did a lot of charity work and volunteer work. She won some awards for that. She made sure that her children, she had a daughter and a son. They had lived in a nice area. They had built their dream home, 8,000 square feet.
What?
Yes, 11 rooms.
That's like 7 of my house.
I know, right?
7.
They had a swimming pool. They had tennis courts, and their kids drove the best cars, had the best opportunities.
Of course they did.
Now, the son, Stuart, he was a good boy. He was an honor roll student. He was a Boy Scout. He was a leader in the Key Club at school. He founded the Asian American Club at Fullerton High School. So he was even an entrepreneur. He was into selling and building custom computers, and his goal was to attend Princeton. So he had applied to Princeton. He was expecting to get accepted in the spring.
Wow.
So, yeah, what a life, right? But police said that on the surface, Tay was a good boy. But he also had a dark underside. After they did a little bit of investigation, they realized, this is a perfect child until you dig a little deeper. So what they found out was that Tay had this idea to rob a computer dealer, a computer dealer in Anaheim.
Okay.
And he was talking to his girlfriend about this. He's like, yeah, I've got this great idea for a computer dealer heist.
What do you mean computer dealer? Like someone who sells wholesale parts or
both? Like, I think both, because I know that I read that he had bought some computer parts from this guy before, but the guy probably also has PCs. Now remember, this is 92. I'm trying to think of when I got my first computer. It's probably right around then. Maybe late 80s, early 90s. So computers were still rather expensive at the time. Yes. And they were really big. I remember that. And I know that a lot of my friends would build their own. It was cheaper for them to build their own, and they could get more for their money by building their own. Anyway, he had this idea for a heist. I mean, you know what? You're a senior in high school. You're an honor roll student, and you come up with a heist.
Right.
Now, I don't know when the Fast and Furious movies came out, but, it's kind of like, it was after that. But it was kind of like the glory of, the criminal underworld. I know that lured this kid. Anyway, he
watched a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows where,
Right, yeah.
Like you said, the glory of it. It was glorified.
Yeah, he was dating a girl named Jennifer Lynn who went to rival high school. She went to Sunny Hills High School, and he was talking to her about this heist. She's like, dude, I know the perfect guy that can help you. He's my ex-boyfriend, and he can find you a gun. He's also got ties to the Waching. Now, let me tell you a little bit.
He wasn't an honor student, huh?
Yes, he was an honor student.
Was?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
So the Waching is a Chinese American gang, and I did a little bit of research on it. And what it means is it means Chinese youth. And it refers to a Chinese street gang that originated in San Francisco around sometime in the 1960s. And these Cantonese immigrants would come together, and the American-born Chinese would terrorize them, shake them down for money. So these Cantonese immigrants formed a gang called the Waching.
Okay. I can't blame them if they're being...
Well, they quickly became organized crime group with alleged multi-international ties, multi-international and national criminal connections, and it's still there in LA today. I did the research, and about 3,000 members are still in LA with about 1,000 affiliates.
Wow.
And also I learned that they associate with the Bloods. Now, yes.
Really?
So I guess it came down to gang warfare, gang turf, they would side with the Bloods. I don't know anything about gangs, but that's just what I found in my research. Now, LA police had in 1992 did not know of any kind of watching activity in the LA area, in the Orange County area. They did get a call in October 1992 that I'm going to tell you about in a minute, but he said this guy named Roop, he's a police spokesperson, he said that Asian gangs are different from your typical Hispanic or African American gangs, or even your white gangs, because they dress conservatively. They'll dress in suits, they'll dress in ties, they'll dress like preps. Okay. They're very conservative. They do well in school. They don't drop out. They're your honor roll kids. They often hold jobs, so they're entrepreneurs. They have jobs. They also don't stand out. They don't wear tattoos. They don't tag walls with graffiti in their neighborhood, so it's hard to identify them. Basically, what they do is they band together for burglaries and robberies.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the police had gotten a call in October of 1992 of possible ties of Waching being in the area. And actually, one of the people that is involved in our murder today, Robert Chan, was involved in this incident where they had gotten this call. According to the police report, Chan and 6 other Asian American boys went to the home of a classmate because they believed that he had badmouthed the Waching. The police...
Ooh, don't do that.
Yeah, I know. But the police said no, they didn't badmouth the Waching. This kid made fun of Chan because Chan was wearing high waters. So, yeah, okay. You don't belittle Chan because he's the Waching, according to him.
Oh, okay.
So, anyway, the boy refused to come out of his house. So, all these boys, Chan and 6 boys, are like, dude, you need to come out because if you don't come out, we're going to start shooting up your house. We've got guns out here. So, the boy's really concerned. I don't want... Well, he did go outside, and he got his ass kicked. So the 6 boys ended up kicking his ass while Chan stood there and watched.
Oh, so he didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything. He just orchestrated the whole thing.
Like a stand-up kind of guy.
Now, in my research, I also learned that the Asian Americans, they have a huge distrust of police. So a neighbor called the police and said what was going on, but the boy refused to press charges. So nothing ever came about of that.
That's unfortunate.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Now, these kids were all clean cut. They had good grades, but the warning signs were there. For example, Chan would brag to his classmates about, he had dangerous gang ties. He also said that he ran a cheating ring for the SAT. Actually would if you wanted to get into good school, you could pay somebody to take your SAT. He was the guy you'd go to.
Well, we know with recent developments,
Yeah.
that's what people are doing of stature.
Right.
Celebrity status.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
A couple of the other boys, and I'm going to give their names later, but one of the other kids came to school with a bloodstained knife. He showed this girl's look, I just murdered somebody. Now, these kids were wealthy. They were well educated. They were honor roll students. They fell outside of the stereotype. You think of Asian American, you think, oh, yeah, that kid's perfect. It's probably got a strict parentage. And
what are they? Tiger moms?
Right.
Tiger parents?
Yeah. But... so you don't want to think that they're doing anything bad. So a lot of the adults, this is going below the radar for a lot of adults.
Well, yeah, kids that are clean cut and wear suits and ties and
Right.
are on honor roll. If someone said, "Oh yeah, so and so is a gang member," and that's the kid they're pointing out,
Right.
Right.
Right. Now, it's important for me to say that the police never proved that Robert Chan was a member of the Watch Gang. They think it was all hot air. They think he was just bragging. He was just making this up.
And he might have been.
But it's clear that his peers really believed it. To adults, Chan, like Tay, seemed to be the perfect child. He was a straight-A student. He was born in Taiwan. He was in the top 1% of college-bound students. He was in the top 1% of college-bound students. Now, Tay and Chan were both IB students.
Okay.
Now, Chan was active in Key Club also, which is a big thing there. He was on the academic decathlon team, and he tutored his peers. And according to police, he had a spotless record, which allowed him and his friends to commit a number of smaller crimes. They got away with a lot of things just because of what they look like and their grades. So, Tay ended up getting information from Jennifer Lynn, the ex-girlfriend. Jennifer's like, you can contact my ex-boyfriend, just don't tell him it was me. And so Tay, he's like this brilliant guy. He decides he's going to play a little game. So at an academic decathlon where the schools are together competing for this trivia bowl or whatever they do, I don't even know, but some kid approaches Robert Chan in a very mysterious way. He hands Robert Chan a playing card with the ace of spades on it.
Just out of nowhere.
And he's like, be prepared. Or he says something very, very, obscure and mysterious.
Okay.
Chan, in his own words, later told police that he was dumbfounded by this card, but he was intrigued. So he was excited to hear what this was all about. Well, later that night, he gets a call from a guy calling himself Martin Gore. Now, Gore claims to be a 19-year-old gangster with ties to Secret Service, the CIA, as well as the underworld. He's got 100 followers in this criminal underworld.
Wait, a 19-year-old?
Yes.
Is tied to the CIA.
Well, I guess the watching is it's all young people. So, would it, yeah. I mean, to us, it's silly.
So, it was the CIA.
The CIA, the Secret Service, and the criminal underworld. With 100 followers. He's got 100 followers beneath him. Just to order around. Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
I call bullshit.
Okay, well, I do too. But Chan didn't. Gore told Chan, he's like, look, dude, I've got this thing, the secret thing. I don't want anyone to know about it. I need your help. And your name came up as being the best person to go to for this. So Gore told Chan that he heard about Chan's connections and he wants to recruit Chan for a job. He needs a weapon. So he's saying, Chan, I need you to get me a weapon and I need you to help me with a job I have.
Well, if he has ties to the criminal underworld and he has ties to
Right.
the CIA and to the Secret Service, shouldn't he be able to get his own weapon?
Right. But he doesn't want anyone else involved. He wants new blood in, apparently. So somehow Chan bites this, he's
Chan
taking the
sounds
bait.
like a naive idiot.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, Chan agrees to meet with Gore. They have a face-to-face meeting. Now, when he meets Gore, he's got this really nice, brand spanking new Nissan 300ZX, fancy red car.
Oh, wow.
He's got a
90s,
beeper.
that was a big deal.
Yeah, he's got a beeper. It makes him look like he's a big time gangster.
Well,
So it seems
they live
legit
in
to
LA.
Chan. Right.
It makes it sound like they probably are the products of family members who have money.
Right. Well, Chan believes the story. He takes it hook, line, and a sinker. Okay. They began to brag to each other about their criminal dealings. So Chan brags about his involvement in Huaqing. He promises that he can get backup for the heist. He could provide manpower and high-powered weapons. He's like, I can get an AK-47.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he tells Gore.
Like I'm sorry.
It's kind of like what are those like?
Watching too much fucking TV.
What do they call that? Like a dick competition? What do you call that? Like, oh yeah, my dick's bigger than yours. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway,
A dick measuring contest.
he told Gore that he also ran a side SAT business.
That I believe.
Yes, and
That's
he did.
believable.
Yes. Now Gore claimed, "Oh yeah, well, guess what? I can make fake IDs and I can make credit cards. I can get my hands on high-powered explosives, and I can pirate computer programs and probably VHS tapes." What was it? Is that the right era, or are we still?
Yeah, that would be VHS. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We're not quite to DVD, but we're past beta.
So they met a few more times after to plan the robbery. Now the plan was to force their way into a computer dealer's home in Anaheim, tie up the man's family, and steal thousands of dollars in computer goods. Chan had enlisted 3 other guys because remember, Chan's like, oh, dude, I've got the manpower. So he gets 3 of his buddies to join in. So he gets his buddies Charles Cho, Kern Kim, and Mun Kane. All of these are honor students, also Asian Americans. Actually, I think all 3 of those are Korean Americans.
Okay.
And they decide they're going to help him. So they all meet. They meet with Gore. And at this meeting, Gore drops his wallet. And it falls open. And Chan bends down to pick it up. And he checks out the dude's driver's license and realizes that this is not Martin Gore. This is Stuart Tay. And he did not know Tay, did not realize that this is his ex-girlfriend's boyfriend. At first, a private investigator, I'll talk about later, thought that the reason behind the killing was the girlfriend. But Tay had Chan had no idea that Tay was dating Jennifer Lynn, the ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
So
is
she's
Jennifer
not
Asian American too?
She is.
Okay.
That was not a motive for the murder. The motive was that Tay approached him with a fake name. It was like, I can't trust you anymore. Did you lie to me about your name, about who you are, about your dealings? I can't trust anything you do. Now,
Tay and Gore are the same person.
Tay and Gore are the same person. Now, let me tell you that Tay, what I didn't tell you earlier is that he's kind of like really into punk rock, alternative, and his favorite band is Depeche Mode. He's also a keyboardist. And the keyboardist for Depeche Mode, his name is Martin Gore. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So this is where he got the name. But at this point, Chan is beyond furious. Like, he is fucking pissed. He's raging. And he can't trust Tay. So he begins to plot his murder.
Oh, wow. Is it really like that? Is that really necessary, dude?
And we're going to learn later that a couple things about Chan that would explain this behavior a little bit, or at least what the defense uses to explain his behavior.
Okay.
So he begins to plot a murder. So Chan, along with his friends Cho, Kim, and Kang, they plan to lure Tay with the promise of a gun. So they're pretending to stick with this heist.
Okay.
Tay wants a gun. So they're going to lure him with the gun, and then they're gonna murder him.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
And you may have said this already, and I apologize if you did, but did they confront him right then and say, hey, I saw your real name on your wallet, I can't trust you? Or did they just go along?
You know what? That's a really good question that I never really saw. I think that they did confront him at that time.
Okay.
And because at that point the meeting breaks up, it is because Chan is pissed. But then they decide to lure him back. So they decide, you know what, you gave us the wrong name. We're going to go ahead with this. At least that's what they tell him.
Okay. I mean, he could have turned on, well, I didn't know if I could trust you, so I gave you this fake name.
And he does. He does. He kind of says the same thing. But he went to great pains to portray himself as this mysterious guy.
Who has ties to the Secret Service,
right.
the CIA,
right.
Yada, yada, yada.
Now, not that deserved to be murdered. I mean, they're children. They're kids playing this adult game. It's ridiculous. But anyway, he also so they decide, well, where are we going to do this? Where are we going to put the body? We're going to need some help.
Yeah.
So Chan enlists the help of a kid named Abraham Acosta. Now, Acosta is the only non-Asian in the group.
I was like, that is not an Asian guy.
It is not. He's the only non-Asian, and I guess he's known as some sort of badass at school. I'm not really sure. People think he's very weird. He's very odd. But he is a special education student. He's not an honor student. He has very few friends. So he quickly agrees to help Chan when Chan enlists him. Chan's like, dude, can you help me with a murder? I'll pay you $200.
Probably feels some acceptance.
Yeah,
there.
right. Now, all these guys went to the same high school, Sunny Hills High School, so they could plot things. And the day before their murder, they all met at Acosta's house. Acosta lived in like a poorer part of town, and not his wife, because he's only like 17, but his mom is a single mom with 5 children.
Whoa.
She rents their home.
And living in California?
Yes.
In a suburb of LA?
Right.
Their poor is probably like our rich.
Well, they're in Bueno Park, which I didn't get a chance to look at, but their house is like in a different area. Okay. They all go to the same school.
So if you live in California poor is not.
Well, it is, but it's still, their rent and stuff is still higher.
It's crazy, yeah.
Okay, so they decided they actually met before the day before the murder, and they rehearsed everything. They decided where the murder would happen. They decided, let's do it in Acosta's garage. They decided where to stash the murder weapons. 2 baseball bats. Yeah.
Of this kid who is ESP.
Yes and no. And we're going to talk about that.
Okay. I apologize.
So they decided where it would happen in his garage, where they would stash the 2 weapons, which were 3 weapons, 2 baseball bats and a sledgehammer. They decided to put those like in the corners at easy reach. They decided who would strike first. Acosta, since we're paying him to strike first. And they would decide who would serve as lookout. That would be Kim. And then who would help dispose of the body. They would all help dispose of the body. Chan decided that he would dispose of the evidence, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the day before this all happened, when they rehearsed everything, they also dug a shallow grave in Acosta's backyard. And the neighbor looks over and like, dudes, what are you guys doing back there? And obviously they're digging what looks like a grave.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, we have to bury a very large dead dog. So the neighbor's like, oh, okay. But,
the neighbor's never seen their very large dog before?
Yeah, that's where it goes. He notices these other kids there. So, you know what? Maybe someone's bringing their dead dog over. I don't know. All right, so now we're going to go to the next day, which happens to be New Year's Eve, December 31st, 1992. Tay is at his home, his 11-room home. And he tells his sister, he's like, and his sister's name is Candace. He's like, Candace, I have to run an errand. Look, I'll be back in just a little while. So he gets in his brand new shiny red Nissan 300ZX, and he drives to Denny's, where he's meeting the other Chan and the other 3 guys. They then all drove. They're like, dude, follow us. We're going to go get the gun. It's at this other guy's house. So they all drive to Buena Park, to the home of Abraham Acosta. And with the promise of a potential gun sale, he goes into this garage unknowingly to his own death. He follows the boys into the garage, and Kang handed Tay a metal box. Now, the box was actually empty, but it was supposed to hold a gun. Now, Tay's examining the box, trying to figure out how to open it, when Chan gives Acosta a nod, and Acosta picks up a baseball bat and swings a blow to Tay's skull. Then Chan picks up the other baseball bat and starts swinging. Now, the other boys are all spread out. One guy's the lookout. One guy's in the other house, making sure nobody comes in. And another guy's just standing there watching. So the only 2 that actually hit Tay are Chan and Acosta.
Jeez.
Now, Chan picks up the baseball bat. He's hitting, and Tay's not dying. He's not dying. This dude, we're fucking bashing his head in. He's not dying. I can't. So then he picks up the sledgehammer.
Oh, Christ.
At this point, Tay is begging. He's begging for his life. He's like, what did I do to you? What did I do? Chan couldn't take that anymore. He picks up a bottle of rubbing alcohol, forces the boy's mouth open, pours the rubbing alcohol into his mouth, and duct tapes his mouth and nose shut. So Tay finally dies. He ends up dying of aspiration. He ends up dying in his own vomit.
Oh.
With blunt and also blunt force trauma. I mean, he
aspirated on his own vomit.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So the boys end up carrying him through the garage to the backyard, and they put him into the shallow grave. Now, the grave is so small that they have to like bend his legs up, so they kind of put him in the fetal position, and they bury him back up. But it's obvious, he's not even covered with dirt hardly at all.
Oh, Lord.
Now, afterwards, a pathologist later testifies that Tay suffered for as long as an hour or more before dying. He's a tough guy; he wouldn't die.
Oh, God, this is hard. I mean, even if he was full of shit and his stories...
He's still the promise, this kid, He
didn't deserve that.
No, he didn't. He just maybe wanted excitement in his life, It's like they're straight A students and they're just bored with everything.
Smarter
and they just
than their own good.
Yes.
Wow.
Anyway, after they put the body in after they put the body into the grave, Acosta's like, dudes, I'm going to bed. But they first took the money out of his wallet and split that up. Acosta got more money than the others because, of course, he's the one that was paid to do the murder. Now, he's like, I'm done with this. I did my part. I'm going to bed. The others leave. They have to deal with Tay's car.
Yeah, I worked up, what a jackass.
Yeah, I'm going to go to sleep now.
I'm going to go to bed now.
Now, some people sleep to escape from things,
Yes, but I just can't. I don't think I would be able to sleep for days.
Okay, so this is what they do with the car. And to me, it's kind of brilliant. Kind of. So, Kim, I've read where he actually dyed his hair blonde so people wouldn't recognize him. But I saw that in a couple of different places. But he drives Tay's car, this beautiful car. He's wearing gloves because Chan's like, here's some gloves so your fingerprints aren't in the car. And they drive it to Compton, where they leave the car on the side of a road with the keys in it unlocked. Now, how long do you think that sat there?
An hour.
Right? Didn't even last an hour. It said before they made it through the next intersection, that car was already gone.
Wow.
And police, at first, when they found the car, they found it was stripped. They first
stripped, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were
they first suspected a carjacking. If the body would have been in the car, the boys probably would have gotten away with it.
Wow.
Okay. And the police are like, when this all comes out, they're like, why would they bury the guy in the car? That just didn't make sense. But, it's children that you're dealing with. I mean, young adults. I mean, they're 17, 18, 16.
They're still children.
So I told you about them splitting up the cash. One of the guys was asked later, what'd you do with the cash? And he said he used it to buy pizza and used it for other entertainment for New Year's Eve.
Wow.
Chan, Cho, and Kang went to a New Year's Eve party. Kim ended up going home to play video games. When Tay didn't come home that night, his parents knew automatically something was wrong. Like, this kid, he was a good boy. He didn't go out. He didn't party. He was home. They ended up hiring a private investigator. I'm not sure if they ever actually called the police or not, but I know that many Asian Americans, they try to avoid any contact with the police. I'm not saying that they try to avoid it. All I know is that I know they hired a private investigator.
Right. Okay.
And they may have done that after the car was found.
Okay.
But at the point, they hired this private investigator, and he quickly, within 3 days of getting hired, he quickly discovered the plot. He interviewed some of the kids. He interviewed Tay's girlfriend and realized that there was some sort of connection with Sunny Hills High School. He's the one that first thought it was a jealousy, like a love triangle. So he talked to a few kids, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what one of the boys said to him. But once he figured out what was going on, he contacted police. The boys were arrested a few days later. Now, the officer assigned to watch the boys, like before they were being booked, it took a few hours for booking, stated that they all showed no remorse. Nobody showed any emotion. They weren't scared. They weren't in anguish. He said they didn't show any emotion at all. And as a matter of fact, one of them, handcuffed to the chair, was doing his calculus homework.
Oh my God.
I mean, a student doing homework.
Oh my God. Wow.
All right. So anyway, like I said, his parents hired this private investigator, and he quickly set about interviewing Tay's friends and got to the girlfriend. And the girlfriend's like, well, I told him a little bit about this. So the PI went and to talk to a student and another kid, Timsbury, and Timsbury said, yeah, I heard Acosta talking about killing someone. Timsbury also told him that as soon as I heard Chan, now Timsbury is one of Chan's friends, and he had heard Chan talking about the murder before it ever happened.
Okay.
So he knew that when Tay went missing,
he knew what was
he
up.
knew something happened. So he called Chan that day. He's like, dude, what happened? And Chan told him the whole murder. Now, this Timsbury told the PI what...
Stupid for being so smart.
Yeah, they brag a lot. They talk a lot. They can't keep their mouths shut. Now, Timsbury told the PI what Chan had told him, and then the PI went to the police. When the police interviewed Timsbury, they asked him, well, did you find it unusual that these wealthy boys would want to plan a robbery? And the kid said, no, you can never have enough money. When he was asked, well, would you have tried to stop it if you knew beforehand? He's like, no, I probably would have been involved. He said that he wasn't involved because he was on vacation with his family.
Oh my God.
Right?
These kids live in a fantasy world.
Right.
They have
None.
They're delusional, and they have no concept of the real world.
Right. Well, the police said they were shocked about how many kids knew about the murder before it ever happened, and the ones who knew about it after the fact, because rumors spread fast. He said nobody came forward.
That's crazy to me. I don't care if you're trusting of the police or not.
Right.
I can't imagine them being like, oh, okay.
Well, and the police were like, we had to dig it out of these kids. They were not going to come forward. We had to threaten them and coerce them.
They're going to take it to the grave.
Now, it could be a couple of things. I mean, maybe they really did believe the watching connection. They're afraid to tell.
Maybe.
Who knows?
I mean, yeah.
But they're not snitches.
I mean, I guess if you thought that there was gang ties, really.
Right.
And that you could be hurt or your family members. I mean, who knows how long they had been telling people they were a part of this and setting that
yeah.
up to scare them. I mean, if you know that someone is a mob, if you know that this person's married or their dad is John Gotti and they're talking about all this shit at school, you're probably going to keep your fucking mouth shut.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if he's been talking
Snitches
about
get stitches
and wind up in dishes.
Yeah.
So if they have been talking about this gang tie stuff for how many ever years or however long, the kids probably aren't. And if they're already Asian American, they probably, possibly already know about this gang from family members or just being in that cultural group.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that community in just a minute. Now, police, when they arrested these boys, they quickly established Robert Chan as the ringleader. It was obvious to them.
Obvious.
Plus, they also had that other incident where those 6 boys did the beat down on that one kid, and Robert Chan was just orchestrating the whole thing. Now, they said,
like the puppet master.
Right, exactly. They said that he set the plan in motion. He's the one that hired Acosta to get rid of someone. He gave Kim the rubber gloves so his fingerprints wouldn't be in the car. He orchestrated the rehearsal. He orchestrated the shallow grave. It was also his idea to take the car to Compton. Now, one of the boys had learned on a crime documentary that one fiber could reveal the killer. So Chan took the responsibility for disposing of the blood-spattered clothing, the rubbing alcohol bottle, the weapons, the metal box, and Tay's wallet. He took them to a park, Newport Beach Park, I believe, and he set them on fire in a barbecue pit. Now, when the police realized this, they went to that park, and there were still remains of a lot of that evidence.
So they were able to find some evidence.
They were. 5 days after the murder, they went and found blood spatter on the walls and ceiling of Acosta's garage. So they didn't do much cleanup there.
Again,
Right.
no common sense, really.
Right. All right. So now, not long after the October beatdown, Chan's parents took him to a psychotherapist. In November of 1992, they noticed that their son is acting really strangely.
Okay.
So his mother testifies that she took him in the weeks before the murder. He refused to bathe. He would sleep with the lights on. He became convinced that strangers were out to hurt them. Like she said that at one point they were walking down the street and some homeless man said something to them, like, you know, may I have a money or whatever, and he freaked out. He thought the guy was going to follow them home. There was another incident where a woman was in their neighborhood that she was a stranger, and he got very paranoid about that. So the Chans met with a counselor to discuss their son's problems because they were so scared and worried about him.
Sounds like he might have some PTSD.
Now, his mom's a former teacher, and she said he didn't feel any more hope for his life. So they had 4 visits with the counselor. And the counselor's like, you know, he's got moderate depression, but I don't think that I'm qualified to treat him. He needs to go to a psychiatrist. Well, they couldn't get him into a psychiatrist until January 7th, which, by the way, is 1 week after the murder.
Yeah.
So he does eventually see a psychiatrist while he's in jail, and he is later diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
Now, the psychologist said that he wasn't qualified to treat him. Psychologists treat...
He was a counselor, so maybe
Okay.
a family counselor. He's not qualified to diagnose that. He said that he needed to see a psychiatrist, is what he said in testimony.
He's going to need medication, so I'm going to forward all of this on to a psychiatrist.
Definitely could be. So at this point, you know, his mom is testifying, and we're skipping to the court.
Okay.
Now, she says that during his first 3 years of high school, he excelled in school. He was a sharp dresser. He was a contender for class valedictorian.
Wow.
But in early 1992, things started falling apart for him. His mother said they started to change. His grades began slipping. He refused to shower or brush his teeth. He wore filthy clothing. He became distant and depressed. She said she thought depression was normal in teens, and I know that some parents do. You know, teens get, you know, gloomy and depressed sometimes.
But it is about the right age for schizophrenia.
Yeah, it can develop anywhere from 16 to 25. But she sought help when he didn't improve. She says that shortly before the murder, she and her son were walking by a homeless man, and he became convinced that the man might hurt him and her. Another time, he became terrified of a woman who was walking by their family home, and he ran indoors. He was freaking out. Chan told his counselor that he felt like a spectator in his life. He felt depressed and hopeless. And the counselor, whose name was Gobi, testified that this was a splitting in his personality.
Wow. That's really sad.
It is.
I feel really bad for the parents, too, and him, because he probably didn't know what the hell was going on with him, because he really thought that those people were.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that, because some people claim that, you know, he's a genius and he could have, you know, he's trying to do the insanity plea because he's that smart. So it's kind of plays into the stereotypical, you know,
It's a possibility, but
right.
If not,
Right.
That's really sad. And the parents are like, we've given our kids everything. They had the best of the best. We did everything that we possibly could. As a parent, I'm thinking, where did I go wrong?
And
did I not
yes.
do?
Yes.
And even though that's not is something, it was in his genetic makeup. It's not their fault.
Well, his therapist further stated that Chan told him, you go to work, or you go to school, you work, then you die. It's just a very hopeless outlook on life. Now, he was also consumed with random thoughts on death, evil, the Smurfs. He was consumed with thoughts about former President Theodore Roosevelt. I'm not sure where these came from.
What?
Yeah.
Smurfs and
I know.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, so the schizophrenic mind is very bizarre. But his counselor testified that he at first thought Chan's problems were just moderate. He didn't realize the severity of them. He testified, you know...
Well, they can only go based off of
right.
what the patient says.
Exactly. And like I said, after the murder is when he got the diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. Now, if he could have maybe gone to a psychiatrist before the end of the year, let's just push everything to early next year since we've got Christmas parties and whatnot. It's
but medication takes time. They would have had to put him on medication. That takes time. And if he was smart enough to realize something is not right, I'm not going to tell them because they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to throw me in the loony bin. They're going to do this.
Right. Now, a clinical psychologist testified that Chan heard voices in his head and acted under the delusion that Tay had rigged his home with explosives, which could detonate at any time. According to the psychologist, Chan feared that Tay was a member of an Asian mafia and that Tay knew info about Chan that no one else did. So I think finding that wallet and realizing that this kid wasn't who he said he was, I think that if he was paranoid schizophrenic,
it messed with him.
It messed with him, and I would have to say that he is. I mean, people would not lie about that kind of diagnosis just to protect somebody in prison, would they? From going to prison.
I mean, I guess if they had enough money and they could buy it off. But it sounds like to me, with everything else, just all of the things that you've told me already.
Right.
I mean, clearly I'm not a mental health professional, but...
Yeah. Well, the Korean community, like I told you, 3 of the boys were Korean that were involved, and they were shocked. They were shocked by the involvement of their own kids being in it. They actually blamed the violence on the public schools. They blamed it on the lack of moral education in the high schools. Jesus, God forbid if we try to teach moral education in high schools, what would happen, right?
Well, maybe they'd have some morals, but well, your morals and my morals are completely different. And
and if you're in Korea or one of those countries, most people are going to have the same moral values. Right. But anyway, according to them, Kern Kim, Charles Cho, and Mun Kang were Americanized, so the blame lies with the American system of education. Of course, blame the teachers, right?
Don't get me started.
Now, Abraham Acosta was the only non-Asian suspect, as I said earlier. He was a special ed student at Sunny Hills High School, and he was described by his friends as being kind of weird. I already went through this. People, he told the police that he couldn't read, so when he was arrested, he said, I can't read when they try to give him something to read. And then when they did the Miranda rights, he's like, I don't understand. So they had to put it in different language. He said he still didn't really understand. His attorney is pushing the slow, retarded defense, or pushed that. He's mentally retarded. But someone that was close to the investigation said that he wasn't really as stupid as they were trying to make him out to be. He lived in a rented home in Buena Park with his mother and 4 siblings. He was known to wear outlandish hats and clothes. He loved dancing and attending raves. Now, his lawyers claim that he was mentally retarded and easily manipulated by others, which could be if you're,
So he probably just had a low IQ. He was an outcast. These people were accepting of him. So he was easily led.
Right.
I mean, that would... anyone who does, I don't have any friends. These people I'm going to do whatever I can to be.
Now, he was, at the time, he was under 18 when it occurred. So he was convicted of first-degree murder, but he ended up going to the CYA, which is California Youth something. I have it written down somewhere. I'll get to that with the other kid. But he was released at 25. So he served in the youth facility until he was 25.
So he could still...
Well, in 92, he was, 17, so 20 years later, 25 would have been 8 years later. So in 2000, he was released.
But what I'm saying is he still had a life ahead of him.
Absolutely, yes. Now, Kern Kim, that's the one that drove the car to Compton. He was from a prestigious family in Orange County. His dad was a doctor. His mom was also a volunteer. She won a lot of awards, too. And his friends had overheard Chan ask Kim if he would help dispose of a dead body. Now, he acknowledged being a lookout and playing video games on his PC, but he denied having any other involvement in the murder. But, he still took part in the plotting. So he was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
So did he deny driving the car, or did he admit to that?
I don't know if he ever admitted to that fully or not.
Okay.
He did end up getting 25 years in prison, and he served 18 years of that. So he got out in 2012. He was recently released.
I mean, they were so young.
Yeah.
That, and being as smart as they are, I'm sure they rebound.
Well, now this kid, Charles Cho, also Korean American, he admitted to being in the garage with Tay when the killing started. He didn't have anything to do with killing him, but he watched it all.
He was there.
He helped carry the body to its grave. Now, he was a volunteer at YMCA, worked in the child care program. He was an IB student, honor roll student. He planned to attend an Ivy League school. And after his arrest, he cried to his mom. It's so heartbreaking. He's like, I ruined my life. I'm never going to go to college. My life is over. I messed my life up. So everything that he had worked so hard for is totally gone. Now, he ended up pleading guilty. And in exchange for testifying against Chan, he was sentenced to a California Youth Authority facility, CYA, where he was released at 25. He's the guy that once came to school with a bloody knife, and his peers saw him as very strange. He was the weakest link for police. Like when police went in to figure out, they knew the story, right? Yeah. The other guy, Mun Kang, he is also a Korean American. He was described as an easygoing guy. He denied knowing Tae at first until they left him alone with Kim, and then they talked, and then he talked to his parents, and his parents are like, look, if you're responsible for this, you need to
fucking admit it.
You need to admit it now so these parents know the truth.
Good for them.
So he admitted to handing Tae the metal box and helping to carry his body. He was a loner and kept himself, but his parents wanted him to take responsibility for his actions and spare the Tae family, so he confessed and pled guilty. Now, I don't know. I read somewhere that he ended up dying of AIDS, that he contracted in prison. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't believe he's still alive at this time. I think he may have died in prison, but I couldn't find that information. Went back to look for it.
That's sad.
So on New Year's Eve in '92, 5 of Orange County's best and brightest, 5 of our country's best and brightest, they murdered another boy, and it was premeditated. It was brutal. They beat Stuart Tae to death, and when he wouldn't die, they killed him with rubbing alcohol. So both Stuart Tae and Robert Chan were bright students with loving families, but they unfortunately their bright futures ended in such a senseless murder.
That's awful.
Yeah. Chan was convicted of first-degree murder in '94 after less than 3 hours. And after less than 3 hours of jury deliberation, and so he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. So he's still there as far as I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's very sad.
So sad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's sad when anyone thinks that that's the only option that they have is to murder someone. And I hate to say that it's even more sad when someone with so much potential.
Yes, because this could have been, the next... Somebody could have, come up with the next cure for cancer or something. Who knows?
Yeah, because they were on that path.
Right.
And they
were just
too smart for their own good.
Right. And I think just the glamour of living a life of crime and, it just kind of lured them a little bit. Kids always try to act like they're tougher than they should be anyway.
Okay.
So that's it for this week. And we appreciate you guys listening. Thanks so much. We would really appreciate your support. So please subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a comment about anything. Guys, your comments and your subscriptions really push us up the charts. And we do appreciate your help. If you need more information, you can find our links to our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
We do not have Tinder.
Our Tinder pages at itwasn'tmetruecrime.com.
We are so grateful to be able to come together and share these stories with you. Thank you so much for listening and supporting us. Please subscribe and rate us on your favorite platform. And if you'd like to support us even further, visit patreon.com/itwasn'tmepod. Thanks, guys, and remember,
it wasn't me.